The Halifax Mooseheads go down 3-zip. Chicoutimi Sags get the job done, and they got it done rather easily. 6-1 victory. Mooseheads lose on home ice, and it was a rather quiet building at the Scotiabank Center. Daeden and I were at the game, and of course, this is Halifax Sports Talk. You guys can catch us most weeks, Mondays and Thursdays, but for big games, we're always going to give you guys more content, and of course, we're going to break things down when we can. Daeden, it was what better time to get to a game together than yesterday? But man, oh man, there was probably more energy in a game in November at the Scotiabank Center than there was last night at the game.
I know we talked about it, and actually, funny enough, we ran into Jared, former or not former, fellow member of Mayo Media Network, and he was there with his girlfriend, first time, and I was also hyping it up so much. I was like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. Look at these videos." And a few minutes in, it's 3-0, and the building is dead silent. So that's that. And apparently, the team just needed 3 goals to play better because Andrew, after that 3-0 deficit, they were actually the better team.
Yeah, 100%. You and I were saying that. Like there was a goal. They went up 1-0. Chicoutimi did before most fans even got into their seats, and that was deflating. And then that was, I think, off a rebound, then wide open net. Second one, Owen Brisson would have liked to have back. And then I think it was 3 goals on 6 shots. It ended up being they changed it from 5. So 3 goals, 6 shots, not very good to get it going. And as you mentioned, they seem to have awakened and played their best hockey for the rest of the period, majority of the second. And that's really tough to see because, you can't take that long to wake up. But it might sound crazy to talk so much about the building, but how important it is at home to even have a strong 5-6 minutes to kick the game off. You talk about surviving the storm, and even though they were on home ice, you needed to create some momentum, couple big hits, couple scoring chances. Like even whenever the Mooseheads would come close to scoring, the crowd would start to make some noise. But when you wait until the third period to score your first goal, and man, oh man, the place got going after they scored their first goal, but it was a little bit late there at that time. So here it is. You can see it on the screen. 6-1 for Chicoutimi. The Sags looking to close out the series on Wednesday night in Halifax. And the way I look at this and the way I approach this podcast here, and we'll try and keep it quick for people, is how nice do we want to be, Daeden, about how that game went?
Andrew, there's no way you can be nice. I mean, we talked about let's start with the Danny Walters physicality because we talked about that a lot last night. We said, well, he's playing his game and he's doing his role, but he's just doing it the wrong way, right? Like, yes, he is doing the right things. He's trying to get the boys going, but you go and you run some guy, uh, basically flip him over a hip check, you like take out his knees at center or right in the slot. He doesn't even have the puck. The puck's in the corner, and like that's first off, Danny. You don't do that. And you're cross checking guy at the top of the zone. How about you do that in the corner when you're down along the boards? The ref can't see it as much, and you rough a guy up down there. Like it's just these little, or I mean, the little right hand shot to the face of Lavoie. At least he kept the glove on, right? Because if not, I think he would be gone.
100%. And of course, the cross check, I think, in the third period. But the thing is, I was saying to you yesterday, look, you can't drop the mitts to fire the boys up like you used to be able to. There was at one point, there was a scrum happening on one side of the ice, a scrum happening on one side. So the fans on both sides of the arena got to watch their own scrum go on. But it was hard for them to gain momentum. And I know it's hard to do a podcast talking about momentum, but that's really what I felt when I watched the game, is that it felt like it was hard for them to enter the offensive zone. It was hard for them to exit their own end. Like a lot of things became very difficult for them. But, one thing that sounds so cliche, but when you're in a spot like this, you have to be able to keep the game simple. Fire anything you can on the net, dump and chase, establish, hey, if you can't get the puck out, don't hold on to it, flip it out, ice the puck, do whatever you have to do. And now let's bring this up here, Daeden. This is where it gets tough because obviously you mentioned, two penalties for Danny Walters that he would like to have back that lead to power play goals, but some other penalties as well that led to power play goals. Chicoutimi now on the series is up 3-0. On the series, they are 46% on the power play. Like when you talk about an upset, a 7 seed versus a 2 seed, you need lights out goaltending, great penalty kill, blocking shots. Look, this power play 25% for the Mooseheads, but look, 3 goals for the Mooseheads, 16 goals against, 25% power play, 54% penalty kill. Realistically, it's tough because when you get frustrated, you try and take your anger out, you try and throw some hits, but then whenever they end up going to the box, they get scored on, Daeden.
Andrew, it's tough, and I think I even called one of the goals yesterday. I was looking at, I was like, okay, Wacho, Massey's here, Guite's going to start at the point, he'll drift over to the side, and they're going to go cross ice. They kind of did, but instead they went down to Vermette for his second of the game. It was a pretty nice passing play. All of their power play is very good, Andrew. I have to give them credit. But when you take that many penalties against a team with a power play as good as that, oh, you're going to struggle, and there's going to be some pucks in the back of your net. And I think the Mooseheads learned that last night. So I'll be interested to see if they come out with like a little bit of a different style. I know they like we've mentioned, they like to play that run and gun style of game, get into the corner, finish your hit. You and your beer know that very well from last night.
Yeah.
Credit to Patrick McNabb. But yeah, maybe we'll see like a little bit of a different play style, which would result in maybe a few less penalties, I hope.
100%. Yeah, I'm happy you mentioned that about tickets on the glass. Great tickets for the boys last night. And yeah, not often that I even do that when I'm on the glass. I saw you doing it confidently, put my beer up on the glass, and just I was so fired up to watch the hit happen that I completely forgot to take my beer away. So that was awesome. But I try not to fall victim to this too much, especially with Junior. With the Wanderers, I'll be in the Facebook groups a bit more. But there were a handful of people on Facebook saying, need a new coach, need a new coach. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Look, I understand those are just casual fans, and I don't want to just disrespect anybody on the show here, but this is a young team. This is a team near the bottom of the league, or I should say the top of the league as far as the youngest, however you want to rank that, I guess, but the youngest team. And experience is a big factor, right? And I said to you yesterday, when we were sitting together at the game, this third period is going to tell us a lot about Brad McKenzie. And I'll tell you this. Look, they started the period on the PK and they got scored on, but they played a pretty hard third period, man. Like it is when you have done pretty much nothing all game long and you got to go out there for the third period and you got to try and give it your all. I tip my cap to them because I think they did all right in that third period. The final 10 minutes, if it wasn't me and you, hanging out and we don't get to hang much together, who knows? Maybe we would have been gone with 5 minutes to go in the game. And I don't leave hockey games early ever, typically. I'm not that guy, and I don't think you're that guy either, but there were some fans walking away. So nothing to do with the coach there. I think the coach had them dialed in, but what I am going to say is this, and I want your thoughts before we talk about Game 4, and I think this actually kind of transitions us into Game 4. When you think of Carrier, when you think of Kulibiakin, when you think of Liam Kilfoyle, who made it to the final round of cuts for the Detroit Red Wings, besides Quinn Kennedy, who's had that finishing touch? I've seen some defensemen walking the blue line, trying to find some angles. As much as I'm a guy on every show I do, I talk about depth. You need your big dogs to be your big dogs. And we talked about this all season long, that they were being carried by a handful full of players. And right now it's coming back to bite them in the back because they only have a few contributors. But you tonight, if you're Kilfoyle, even if you're a young Kulibiakin, you're Sean Carrier, you're thinking, hey, we are not getting swept. I don't care what tomorrow brings, what Friday brings, what the games bring back in Chicoutimi. We are not getting swept. You have to have that in you And hopefully they can make. You never really want to encourage individual efforts, Daeden, but we need to see some individual efforts tonight.
We know that these guys can score goals. We've seen Kulibiak do it all season long. We've seen Kennedy do it all season long. Kilfoyle, he's had his fair share of ups. He's also had his fair share of quiet nights, but he's been a producer and he's been he's been consistent. He's been consistent enough to not be on a downswing the whole season. And luckily enough, he is one of the guys with experience, and I think he's going to have to bring that in tonight. Like you said, there's not a whole lot of depth scoring. I did see a couple of good defensive plays last night. Shout out to Ryan Fletcher, captain of the Valley Junior A team. He was playing really well. Cam Manella and Eddie Doyle as well, even though Doyle had a couple shots that went well wide. I think there was one that it might have been on the power play. We were sitting like 5-10 feet from where the puck went, and that was nowhere near the glass or nowhere near the net at all. So yeah, it's just a little bit of consistency that the Mooseheads need to bring tonight, and I think those top guys will really need to be their top guys, and like you said, maybe some individual efforts because who knows? It might be the last game of the season, and it might be time to break it out. And on that point about leaving games, Andrew, you are correct. I never have once in my life left the game early.
I love it. I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy. You want to finish it out and see what happens right until the end. So, look, you learn a lot about a young team, and especially in game 4, elimination game, you learn a lot about them. Look, the old cliches, the hardest one to win is the last one. Well, I'll tell you what, besides the game where Nick Circa stood on his head in game 2, everything has looked easy for Chicoutimi. The power plays looked easy. The zone entries have looked easy. Even the physical battles have looked pretty easy. And I get it. That's one thing with junior hockey, man, is that you load up at the deadline. There's a real big difference in the top 3 or 4 versus the rest of the league. It's kind of a shame, but that's how it's always been with junior hockey. And we saw an upset last year, so we can't really complain. But you got to come out and score the first goal. You got to have yourself a good first period. Because I'll be straight with you. I told you I don't leave games. If I went to that game tonight and I saw that same game, I might be over at the Midtown by the end of the second period because there's probably some NHL games I want to watch or some Blue Jays baseball because they need to start the game the way they went out in the third period. And I know that they were already down 5-1, but you got to end it well. And you know what? Anything can happen. Elimination game. You go out and put a good effort in. You're going to get a Friday night. Because we already know this. You're going to get a packed crowd Friday. The crowd was not great. I will say the crowd was not great yesterday. You're going to get a Friday night Halifax crowd. You win tonight. You steal one on Friday. All of a sudden, you're going back to Chicoutimi. You got a chance. Hey, who knows? Anything can happen. I got to ask you the $1 million question, though, and you already know what I'm going to ask you, but Owen Brisson, did he look good to you yesterday? And should he be the starter for game 4? Actually, let me change my question. Does Brad McKenzie even have a choice to make? Is it even a question in his mind today? Because obviously Brisson was great all year, but then again, Circa was the guy that only gave up pretty much no goals throughout the entirety of game 2 until late. Who's your starter tonight? Is it Brisson or is it Circa?
This is the thing, man. I was listening to the post game show last night actually when I got home, and Brad Kusner jumped on. He's part of the media team. He does the podcast there with Scott McIntosh, and he's a former Moosehead, so he knows just as well as anybody what it's like to be in this position. And he said when Brisson is on, he's playing with like a little bit of swagger, and he didn't have that today, and or last night, I mean, and he didn't have that, and he'll have to find it. I don't know if that's kind of a factor of being off for 5 straight games. I don't know if Circa is better off in between the pipes tonight because he's got something to prove as a young goaltender, and like what else? What does he really have to lose, right? So I don't know. I'm so glad I'm not Brad McKenzie. Like honestly.
Yeah, it's a tough decision to make. It's a tough decision. And one thing we can say is, and I know this, again, this is an obvious statement to make, but the penalties are there. But Brisson's going to look at those goals, and even in the moment, if he didn't think that he should have had them, he's going to look at the tape and say, "Oh, I should have had that, or I should have had that one." He's going to be better tonight.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's the thing. If Brad McKenzie says, "Oh man, you've been our guy all year. We got you. We're sending you back out there. I know you've got better stuff for us to steal one." But also the other side of it is, and people in the comment section might laugh at this, but the other side of it is you can't fight, right? You don't want to do anything crazy. How do you spark a team? And I'll tell you what, with Brisson being the older goalie, with him being probably buddies with a lot of the guys on the team, he would get a lot of people's attention, Brad McKenzie, if he said, "Nope, Nick Circa, you're back in between the pipes." Because then the players who are, I'm sure, friends with all these guys, they would say, "Holy shit, that's our fault. Coach thinks that it was his fault and not our fault." So very interesting stuff. But if I had to guess, there's no bold moves being made. It's Brad McKenzie saying, "You've been our guy all year long. You're going to be our guy again tonight." But I can't wait for the game. I'm going to be watching it and have it on Flow Hockey. The funny thing is, there's not that great of NHL games on tonight too. So in my household, main TV, center stage, we're gonna have the Moose game on. So can't wait for that.
All right. Well, it sounds good, Andrew. I think we should probably just hope for the best. Hope for at least 2 goals, because in this game or in this series, the Mooseheads have not scored more than a goal a game. So that's the first step. Like I said last night, Andrew, baby steps, right? You get 1 goal. Now let's get 2. All right, just get 2, and maybe one from a bottom 6 guy. Like you said the other day, a Santini goal would light that place on fire.
100%, and it makes things easier for the top 6 if somebody else gets one in for it. That's for sure. All right, can't wait for the game tonight. The countdown is on. If you're watching on Facebook or X or Instagram, wherever you are, you guys can find us, Halifax Sports Talk, at least twice a week here on the channel. And hey, go Moose, go! Hopefully they get one more game, and if they do, you'll see us back here talking about it once again on Halifax Sports Talk. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.